Thank you, Anirban, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on data-driven demand generation. Uh, as Anirban said, I am the practice director for at eDynamic, focusing on demand generation and on marketing and marketing-related activities. Just to give you a little background about who eDynamic is, we are a digital consulting firm focused primarily on marketing technologies. We've been around for 10 plus years, and we've worked with a number of organizations, both from mid-size to Fortune 500 companies in a variety of verticals. We're a global company with offices in the US and Canada, the Middle East, and India. In terms of what we do, we primarily align a lot of our services and the technology solutions that we implement around the customer life cycle. So everything that a marketing person needs to do to drive leads, perform online and offline activities, develop a website, analytics, marketing automation, right down to customer engagement, early on onboarding, and cross-sell, upsell activities. We've got a service or a solution that we provide to our customers along all of those paths. We offer services in strategy, so in marketing strategy, relating to all of those activities. We also help implement on your existing platforms, and we are partners with a number of technology vendors as well. So we can help either identify a vendor for you or implement a solution for you. That's kind of in short what we do. We're here today to talk about data, and before we start, I thought maybe we'll just have a quick poll to find out kind of what your challenges are. So anybody, can you open a quick poll? Great, thanks. I think you can close that now. Can you share the results with us? Anyone, I cannot see the poll results. Okay, great. So moving on, why data? So we'll just go back to Albert Einstein, and he said that information is not knowledge, and any data that does not have context is basically just organized information. It's just people doing stuff. It's not about insights, and I think most businesses and most senior management teams are looking for the ability to make decisions based on insights. And one of the problems that we have today is the vast amount of data that we are capturing. In our daily lives, as an analogy, I looked at weather as an example, and every day, every minute, there's vast amounts of data that sensors are picking up. And then that translates into some type of technical thing that meteorologists will interpret. But finally, at the end of the day, we will get some crystallized, distilled view of what our day is going to look like in terms of weather. And this is how we as marketers need to think about insights. It's in boiling down all of those vast amounts of data to something that you can decide whether you need to take your umbrella out or go out without a jacket if the weather's really good and sunny. So that's one example. I think the stock market is another example. In the last 10 years or so, maybe a little more, technology has played a big role in the way people buy, sell stocks, and even how traders bid and determine how markets will go up and down. They also use indicators that will tell them when to buy, when to and when to sell. And we see that every day. We see billions of dollars being transacted. We see billions of dollars being lost or gained. And a lot of that is driven by both data and technology. Even in terms of the TV that we watch or the what we see on our TV screens, Netflix is a great example of how they use data to recommend movies or shows that we might like, and it's all based on their recommendation engine. It's almost I heard someone say, "I watch you, you watch me." It's that type of methodology, and it's working really well because a lot of the reports show that most people are actually following what Netflix is recommending. So this is a very powerful use of data in our day-to-day lives. But when you come to marketing, I think that's where we struggle, because at one point we are seeing this mass of information that we're able to track, we're able to capture. But at the end of the day, we have to see how we can make sense of it all, and essentially derive campaigns, derive programs, make decisions that will ultimately help the business as well as help us perform as better marketers. This is just a day in the life of an everyday person. It's not a marketing person, but this was done by MindJet in the UK. And not marketers, but just everyday people are also getting flooded with information. And very much like we do as marketers, people get distracted and they are not able to function to their full potential because of these distractions. And it's the same with us in marketing. We're seeing this big tsunami of data, and it's becoming a challenge for us to figure out how do we use it and what information out of all of this data that we can capture, or we can look through our analytics platform or through our marketing automation platform or through our CRM system. What is that? What are those key bits of information that are actually valuable that we need to look at first and foremost, and then decide whether we need to act on them? Everyone's talking about big data, and there are essentially the three main V's of big data. There's volume, which is just the fast amplification of messaging across all of the mobile social channels. There's the velocity and the speed at which information is disseminated. And then finally there is variety. There's information that people are broadcasting, but there's also information that, for instance, your photocopier, your cell phone might be, or your car might be generating as we go through our day-to-day lives. And ultimately what all of this boils down to is that you've got a highly connected customer. You've got a customer with a number of data points. You've got a customer with connections into other people. You've got the devices that this customer is using. You've got interest levels into certain topics that this customer might be interested in. And of course, you've got you can also know where this person is located. So you've got a highly connected customer, and what that means is what type of data would you want about that customer that will actually help you do a better job from a marketing standpoint. This is a benchmark study report which just showed what were the channels most kind of B2B marketers were using. Most were using email, social was up top, trade shows and events were there, and a host of kind of standard channels that most marketing people use. And what that says is, okay, so you're doing all of this activity, but if you actually want to drive performance, how do you gauge where to spend your money and how to make what you're doing work even better? At this point, I think I'll ask Anirban to throw out another poll on measurement.
Sure. 29% say revenue impact, 86% say lead generation, 57% say marketing ROI, and 14% say social media influence.
Great. So that's good to know. In terms of tracking revenue, a study by Pardo said that 37% of customers are not tracking revenue. So I think this group is doing some work in tracking revenue, which is great. Another close to 29-30% of marketers are actually not measuring or not properly measuring opportunities sourced by marketers, and about 20% of them are not measuring the number of leads that their activities were generating. There's some other data which says that nearly 30% are lacking the tools in order to do proper tracking, and that's a big challenge. There are other statistics, for instance, that says that almost 81% of the marketers that they had interviewed said that they were not prepared for or did not have the skills to be able to handle data or kind of governance related issues relating to the management of data, which is interesting. You know, after all these years of having a number of great tools, what is still very evident is that the top challenge for marketers is still how do we better quantify and measure the value of our programs, and that is ultimately impacting the way our own credibility. It's what we show to our senior leadership, and it's how they look at us as marketing folks. When we look at why this is, you know, primarily it's because there's a lot of data, and we have to sift through all of this data to pick what is truly insightful and that can help us make decisions, and what is just information, which is useless information. that's the key. There are many challenges in handling data, and it's often hard to process, let alone understand. So the question's more about prioritization and starting with the basics in order to be able to focus on key data points that you can then track, measure, and then act upon. The other challenge is, it's relating to signal and noise. It's about insight. So out of all this information, are you getting insight? Some of the key kind of drivers of insight is relevancy. There's a book by Nassim Taleb called Anti-Fragile, and he said sometimes we might get fooled by the amount of information and by the amount of noise that there is in the data. We have so many data points and so many variables that we might actually make mistakes when we look at the data, just because it's because there's just so much of it and there are so many variables attached to it. When you look at what determines insight, there are a couple of key things to consider. The first is, it's not so much about the information, but how do you use it? Is it relevant? So is it relevant to your customer? How are you using this information in your conversation with your customer? That becomes a big driver. Then you also have to look at context. Do you have the right context? Do you have the right information about the customer to be able to engage them properly? So there are all of these factors. There's timing, which is another element of insight. And when you put them all together, that's when you can sift through information and say, this is information that I can act on. This is information that I can use to engage with my customer. You'll find that a lot of really small organizations that have people that have very close relationships with their customers, they're able to do this a lot better. And the only reason why they are able to do this a lot better is because they have insight. They know, when their customer's wedding anniversary is, or when there's a birthday in that customer's household. They know the pain points and motivations of that customer, and it enables them to actually, without much sophisticated data, they're able to act accordingly. And when we scale this up, we need to be looking at those trigger points in the same way. The second thing is we're living in a digital world, so everything that we do, both as marketers as well as just regular folks, we are leaving a digital footprint wherever we go. Whether we're on a website, whether we're clicking on an email, whether we're answering or doing a search on our mobile phones, we are signaling to the world where we are and what we're doing. And it's incumbent on us as marketers to be able to follow this. And those that can follow this trail really well can actually monetize this really well. And you can act on that. I think Google's a great example of that. There's data that says Google uses about 57 different signals to personalize the search results that you see. We may not need to go to that extent, but the ability to truly understand where your customer is and what they're doing, and be able to capture that information will help you then market to them or communicate to them in a more relevant manner, in context, and thereby help engage them more and convert them. Timing is another factor in as a challenge, because if you think about it, sometimes by the time you can actually get a program or campaign together, it might be too late. Timing is always key, and when we think about big data and all of these sources of data from people's mobile devices and social, it almost becomes imperative that we try to act real-time in a real-time, right-time manner, or else we lose out. When I was putting up this slide, I thought, a great example of timing was when there was that blackout at the Super Bowl, and Oreo, for all the monies and ads that were spent, I think the one that actually got a lot more PR was probably the Oreo ad that came out almost in real time. They just they made a decision and they sent it out pretty quickly, and it got a lot of steam. So that's an example, I think, about how timing can play a really important role in engaging an audience. Another challenge is because we are using so many disparate systems, and we've got things going on in so many different places, what's happening is also the data is also getting stored in all of these different places. And what that means is you as a marketer have challenges with trying to correlate this information or tie them together so that you can make good decisions. You've got these silos, and unless you kind of merge them or meld them together into one so that you can get this common view, it is a challenge. And then finally, there's a new skill set, and I'm sure most of you have seen a lot of talk about data scientists. More sophisticated organizations, large organizations that are leveraging big data are heavily investing in data scientists, and this is a skill that is not easily found. If you think back to the advertising days of the 50s and 60s, the Mad Men show, a lot of what they were doing was by gut. They kind of knew their audience, and they had experience, so they would come up with a slogan or a TV ad or a press or print ad, and they were treated like gods. Subsequent to that, now it's the data people that are actually ruling the roost. It's the data, the data scientists, or what are called quants. These quants are the people that are actually now ruling when it comes to doing your paid search, when it comes to looking at your analytics, when it comes to looking at your CRM system. You need someone who can truly interpret this information, and that's where these people are coming into the limelight. So now let's look at so what do we do? So we've got all of these challenges, and we need to take steps towards optimizing, finding the right data to be able to create high performance demand generation programs. I've kind of boiled it down into kind of 6 steps. The first one is truly understanding what you want to achieve. That's the first step, because if you've got all of this information sitting there, but unless you know what your goal is, it's going to be very difficult for you to navigate through all of this information. The second thing is because of data being either fragmented or in silos or even inconsistent, you need to have a solid data foundation. You need something that you can rely on that can help you make those decisions. The second thing is to be able to track the touch points. So you've got to map out the customer life cycle for your business, and then say at which points in this customer life cycle should I be tracking, and what are those performance indicators that would tell me I should be doing action X or action Y. Because data is in silos, it becomes imperative that you have some type of integration between the systems. So by linking some of these systems together, you're now able to actually bring the data together, very much like doing a VLOOKUP in Excel and bringing two spreadsheets of information together so you can get a more holistic view of the data. Optimization is very important. So getting into a test and learn pattern will enable you to get more out of your demand gen activities. And then finally, it's all about measurement. It's all about data. So you have to be able to also distill this and communicate this in an interesting way, both to yourselves, so that you can know when things are right and when things are going wrong, but also to communicate this up to your leadership. So let's look at understanding what we need to achieve first of all. As a marketer, whether you're a junior level marketing person sitting in a small cubicle or presiding over an entire floor, you must think not so much as a marketing person, but more as the CEO or as the CFO. So think in terms of numbers. Most C-level executives will always be thinking about revenue. Revenue, profit, market share, that's the language of business. And if you start thinking that way, it will actually help you when you are kind of strategizing and building out your own programs. Understanding the business's objectives is extremely critical, and you've got to make sure that whatever your objectives are in terms of marketing aligns with what the business objectives are. Finally, you've got to link the two. So you've got to make sure that whatever activities and investments you're making are linked to those business objectives and certain business outcomes that everyone's bought into. You need to define basically what you want to measure once you've arrived at what those activities are going to be that are going to drive certain business outcomes. When do you need to measure them, and how are you going to measure them? So that's setting up the foundation or the basis for anything that you want to do to drive performance. So when you're planning out these measurements, there are certain things that you need to ask yourself. The first is, what business outcomes are you trying to impact? How much do you expect this program or activity to contribute? Are you going to move the needle just a couple of notches, or are you going to move it right across? And how much are you spending on it accordingly? You'll want to know how this program is going to achieve its objectives, and whether it has or it has not. You'll want to know the type of metrics that you'd like to see, which you may need to also communicate upstream. You'll need to know when you may need to change course if things are not going the way you had planned, and you need to be able to do that earlier and sooner rather than later. So that's also something critical. You need to know what data will help you understand what your baseline is before you embark on this program. And then finally, what are those metrics and what are those data points that you're going to use to ultimately communicate the program's effectiveness and the program's value. This is from Marketing NPV, and they basically have put 5 questions to kind of guide your insights. Again, this is thinking more like a C-level executive and thinking more like your chief financial officer. So, you know, some of the questions are, you know, what are your specific objectives for marketing investment? So what are you trying to get out of this? And how will you connect these investments to revenue and profit? You know, what is the impact that any change in your expenditure and your budget will have on these profits and on these margins over the next year, in the future, and so on, over certain time bands? If you brought it down, is there a significant impact? If you brought it up, will that double the number of leads that you're bringing in? Look at set benchmarks and look at these benchmarks. Look at both your own data. Look at what the competition is doing, and then look at what what's available in the marketplace, and then see how in comparison to those benchmarks, how effective are you at being able to impact revenue and affect profit. So these are some of the questions that you need to take a look at. It doesn't matter whether you're at any level as a marketing person, but the more you think about this, the better you'll be able to both move up within the marketing department, but also show impact and gain credibility within the organization. So when you look at some of those key primary metrics, revenue is big. Most CEOs or board members have no time for looking at campaign metrics. They're not bothered about email click-throughs or Facebook likes or tweets. All they care about is what's the impact on revenue. So the more you can align your metrics with number of new deals, what's the impact on customer upsell and cross-sell, what's the impact on market share, how effective and efficient you've been in terms of what you're doing. And then finally, in terms of lead count, I know a lot of you are doing lead gen. Is it just quantity, or are you looking at both qualified leads and sales accepted leads, MQLs and SALs, number of opportunities that you're generating? That's the type of data that both will convey to senior management about what you're doing, number one, but number two, it'll also help you optimize and refine your own programs and campaigns. There's a second level of marketing metrics that you can look at, but this can stay within the marketing department. So these are things that you need to hold yourself to the fire against. One of them is conversions, not just raw inquiries, but also quality. So applying lead score to what you're bringing in. Spend is a good metric to have, though you may not want to convey that. There's a school of thought that says don't focus too much on it because your budgets might get cut. But it also goes towards being more efficient. So if you can, and especially that this works really well when you're doing top of the line lead gen, like paid search, where you can work towards creating higher quality leads, optimizing your ads and getting a better cost per conversion and a cost per qualified lead. You can use engagement metrics. If you are a web person, attention is a good metric to look at. Things like how much time someone's spending on the site, are they interacting with content that you might have on any of your web properties, You might want to look at, tweets, likes, shares. Again, this is all information that needs to roll up to revenue, which are your primary metrics. But at the program level, for every program that you do, set a goal and measure towards it. The Lens Goal group also had another dimension to this, which is looking at both past, present, and future. When they talk about past, present, and future, they talk about past more as reporting that you would provide every month or every quarter to your senior leadership. There are other metrics which are more diagnostic kind of campaign level metrics, which are happening as you're running a campaign. And this might mean you use control groups, you use an A/B test type scenario, where you're learning as you are launching your program. And the future is looking at certain leading indicators, looking at conversion rates, looking at lead types or sources of leads that might be of a higher value as customers than others. So the time dimension is another interesting layer that you can add to the metrics that you're tracking. The things that you want to avoid are using vanity metrics. Anything that makes you look good but is meaningless to your chief accountant is or chief financial officer should be a no. Don't try to measure what you think is easy. A good example of that is website visits or a number of PPC impressions or clicks. Or it can be simple, people that you met at a trade show. Don't focus on quantity, focus on quality. Even if you're doing paid search and you're getting a lot of clicks, look more at the types of leads that are coming in, because that's very important. It's the lead quality that's then going to generate marketing qualified leads and opportunities, which is then going to impact revenue. So if you are not involved with PPC, for instance, or you're not involved with the actual configuration, then force your agency or force whoever is doing it to look at cost per conversion, look at quality, and look at how many MQLs or qualified opportunities or qualified leads are being generated from these activities. Don't focus on just activity, focus on results. So just don't do a lot of things just because you can or because you were given money to do. Work backwards and say what type of results do you actually want to achieve before you perform any of those activities. And between efficiency and effectiveness, always aim for being more effective than being more efficient. You can be very efficient doing something that may not have any impact on revenue, have any impact on the business, or a positive business outcome. But if you can be effective and generate the quality of leads that you want to generate, or the quality of traffic, or the quality of conversions, then that's something that you want to focus on. Finally, set goals. So whatever you do, if you are just doing it, even whether you say I'm going to track lead quality, if you do not put goals and say I want to generate 100 qualified leads from this program, it's meaningless, and that's not how you will be able to optimize your campaign. So set goals. Set for certain programs, set lofty goals. Set ambitious goals, and then try to work towards it. It's funny, salespeople typically work really well when every time they do. Your highest paid salespeople are typically given higher goals, and mysteriously they always meet those goals. And it's the same with us as marketers. I think we need to give ourselves some really ambitious goals and then try to find ways in which we can optimize our programs to be able to hit those goals. So now that we know, for instance, what our metrics need to be and what we need to measure, we need to create a very solid data foundation. Ultimately, if we cannot rely on the data, we can't use it to make any sort of decisions. So it's critical that we are able to look at data that we are capturing or data that's in our system and say this is data that I can act upon. One of the key things about data then is governance, and in terms of governance, there are kind of three main kind of categories to it. At least that's how I see it. The first is just the quality of the data. So is it current? Is it correct? So do you have the right information in the right fields? And is it consistent, or is it all over the map? A good example, which a lot of customers face, is title. So you might have 100 different titles in your database, and it becomes really difficult then to do any type of segmentation or personalization if you want to do it. If you want to run an email campaign, for instance. If you are a global company and you use annual revenue as a key key data point to capture, you might have them in dollars, you might have them in pounds, you might have them in yen, and that becomes very difficult to handle. So how consistent is the information in your database? There's the sense of completeness, and we'll talk a little about this when we talk about a data profile, but how complete is this information that you can act upon it? I know from personal experience, for instance, that we are building a lead scoring program, but there aren't enough data points that we can build a very robust scoring program on, because there are just so many missing pieces in the profile that it doesn't really make any sense to do a proper score. Finally, there's compliance. Depending on which market you are, or even within your organization, it's always good to know what data you can work with and what data you cannot. And knowing that up front and ahead will always help you manage that data a little better. When you're thinking about data and you're thinking about all of these sources of data, always look at data as a portfolio, because in the same way as you would invest in stocks, and certain stocks might do well and certain stocks might be laggards for a prolonged period, you might lose money in it, and then you cut them off. Look at all of your data in various buckets and see how it's performing. And if it's not doing well, or it's bad data, or it's incomplete data, it's almost better to weed it out and then work on the accurate bits. And then maybe you can sequester that information and then do something with it, clean it up, enhance it, append information to it, or whatever. But that's an interesting way in which you can look at data very much as you would look at your investment portfolio. So when we talk about completeness, one of the things that you need to do is say, what should my data contain? And that is kind of building out a profile. What we do is, when we work with clients, we always look at the buying cycle. We look at both historic data, we talk to salespeople, and we build out first a persona, and then we build out a business profile. And some of the key attributes of this profile are things that we look at, such as this pain points, motivations. We also look at information such as industry and job role, and you put that all together even in an Excel spreadsheet and say, okay, this is what I need to be able to do certain things, to run campaigns, to communicate to them in a more personalized way. So building out that profile then helps you determine how you need to capture this information. So if you look at a funnel, and you know, this is kind of the typical B2B funnel, where you've got top of the line marketing driving down, creating leads, and then engaging them, and then converting them, and then routing them to the sales team for follow up. Each of these are various touch points in your activity list. So how do you flag them so that you can move them down this funnel? This is what Forrester came up with a couple of years ago, where they said that there's no classic linear funnel, but there are all of these other influences. And if you want to follow this model, then just identify what are those touch points and at which points you should be tracking, and you know, put a stake in the ground and say, I'm going to track them here, I'm going to track them here, I'm going to track them here, and I'll use those as influencing or attribution models. Map out your lead management flow. So you know your online channels, you know your offline channels. If you're building nurture programs, then map it out. Kind of build out an architecture of sorts. And each of these points then become touch points. So in the same way as you're doing top of the funnel activities, when you're in an active engagement cycle with your prospects or customers, you'll want to do the same thing. The next thing is to then categorize all of these activities. So you want to categorize your marketing channels. Start simply. I mean, you may not need to know every single one of them. If you're working with ad networks, for instance, you wouldn't need to know every single source within that network that's driving a lead to you. You can get more granular as you go along, but it might just make sense to have a high-level list and then start drilling down. Ultimately, it's more for you to optimize your investments, but when you look at it from a revenue impact standpoint, it may not be a big deal, and no one really cares about it at the senior level. Manage your tracking codes. One very useful way of doing that is to create a spreadsheet, look at all of your channels, look at all of your activities, and then build out your own naming convention. You can use date, you can use time, but the good thing is that once you have these tracking systems, there are also automated programs that can generate these tracking codes for you. When you use this on any activity, whether that activity is a PR release that you are sending out, or whether it's an email campaign, or whether it's a tweet tag, or a blog post, anything that's coming from any of these channels will come tagged with a specific tracking code. And ultimately, you will need to configure your website, your marketing automation system, or whatever you're using. If it's Google Analytics, then it's just your analytics. But you'll then be able to see or get a clearer picture of what's actually working and what's not. Which of these campaigns, which of these programs, which of these sources is giving you the best bang for your buck. One note to make about attributions is there are sophisticated methods. I mean, this is just grabbed from Google. A number of marketing automation systems will talk about this. You can use something as simple as first interaction and last interaction and keep it simple. that will give you enough insight, at least to get going. If you need to get more sophisticated, then you can use a multiple attribution model with weightages for everything between first and last to help you show marketing's influence on a lead and what were those various activities. So again, that's up to you. You can always start simply and then move up and get more sophisticated as you go along. When you're putting in your tracking codes, this is everyone's familiar with Google Analytics, so I put that up. But if you're using a more sophisticated system, then you can use tracking differently. But make sure that anything that you're putting out on the web, whether that's a traditional website, whether that's a blog, whether that's social media, make sure that you have customized codes and customized URLs with tracking codes that can then help you get insight when these leads begin to hit your website or start interacting with you. Finally, we have integration of your systems. So, as a marketing person, you probably are working with one of many or a handful of technologies. The question is, where's your data coming from and what is the gold standard? Typically, your gold standard might be your CRM system, where your data is qualified, your data is meant for your sales team to act upon. But perhaps there's another system. So determining what those systems are is critical. Understanding your kind of technical infrastructure becomes important. Where's your prospect database? Where's your customer database? Are they remote or are they within your control? And what are the complexities of bringing that information in so that you can act upon it? Those are some of the kind of steps that you would need to take, or homework that you would need to do up front in order to be able to prepare yourself for any systems integration. One of the things that we do at eDynamic is we focus a lot on web properties. So integrating your web properties like your CMS-powered website or a SharePoint or Internet-powered website or portal with marketing automation platforms and with your CRM system. And the three of these technologies or these platforms actually give you a very good consolidated view of what a customer is doing across these platforms. So everything that you're doing in marketing automation with emails and forms and landing pages, maybe social sign-on. You've got your CMS system, which might be using personalization and doing a number of different things to interact with the customer. Bringing those two together become important. And when you pass that information to the CRM system, or you bring in information from the CRM system, then you've got a more powerful capability, which is the ability to then personalize that information, leverage information from your CMS system into your automation, into your marketing automation platform, and so on. And then finally, it's all about optimization. So it's about testing and learning. So whatever you do, whether you start out with a control group and then move into a full-blown rollout, or whether you do A/B testing as you go along, it's always a good idea to review, test, and optimize. And finally, it's all about communication. You've got to tell your story. So make sure that you have some type of a dashboard. If you've got tools in-house that you're using, then that's a good example of something that you can socialize or communicate internally of how you're doing, both at a high level from a revenue impact perspective, but then also from a campaign metrics perspective. You can look at ROI and you can communicate them very easily with stakeholders by saying, here's how I'm doing across the board. This is my impact on revenue. You can also look at campaigns. So this is something that you can do for yourself to say, okay, well, what did I spend on and how did they work? So if there was a podcast that you did that actually did really well and it brought in the most number of deals, then maybe the next time around that's what you need to look at. If you're running data through a funnel, you'd also want to know how much of leakage has been there and what is the volume of data from a revenue perspective that you may have lost, and what could you do to actually optimize on it and save those leads from getting qualified out. This is something that I used to work on, which is it doesn't have to be pretty. Again, when you're thinking about a CFO, they are looking at spreadsheets, they're looking at data. So as long as you're able to communicate what you're doing and what your impact is from a top line activities down to closed deals, and what's the rejection rate anywhere in between, that'll give you a good idea or set you up for success, both within the organization, but also with the campaigns that you're running. That's it. We've got a few minutes left. Anirban, are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have a few questions, but we are really running out of time, Sham. So let's quickly take some of those. The first one is how can we cultivate a data-driven marketing team?
So that's a good question, and it's difficult because the best way to cultivate a data-driven team is to look at the business metrics, is to look at revenue, and to be able, and also help team members do some of the things that we talked about. So one of them is knowing what to measure, and then holding them to the fire to be able to say, okay, well, how's your campaign doing? Are you asking the right questions? Is this going to impact revenue? Is this going to impact leads? Is this going to impact quality of leads? Why am I doing this program? When you start having those discussions, I think automatically you will orientate the team towards a more data-driven culture. I think socializing business metrics like revenue, like margin, like profit are also important. Even though you may have a marketing analyst that might have just come out of university, train her or train him to be able to think about whatever they're doing in the context of a revenue impact or a business impact or a business outcome. Anybody?
Yeah, we'll take probably one more. How can we utilize data-driven approach for our mobile site strategy and design?
Again, I think it's about plugging in the analytics. So if you've got a mobile site and you are curious to know how it's performing, one of the things that we do is conversion optimization. We help customers with conversion optimization. If you've got a mobile site, you want to know, there are some really good metrics that you can track, like where and when are people accessing your site. You should be able to try to get, put plugins for social shares and things of that way on the site to be able to see if people are actually tweeting about certain things. There are certain attributes to a mobile site, and if you've got them rightly configured, then you should be able to track the activities, see where people are coming from, what sources they were bringing them to that site. It depends on what function you're offering. I think looking at that type of information will help you both optimize the site, maybe put content in there that's specific to time and place. So if someone is at a train station and looking at your site, what would they be looking for? And being able to give them that information. I think having a good, a well-configured analytics engine behind that mobile site will help.
Okay, there are a few more questions, but we'll have to get back to them after the webinar via email. At this note, we'll have to end the webinar. I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar. We hope you found it informative. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within next 3 business days. We'll also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@edynamic.net for any questions you might have. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Anirban. Give us feedback, and if there are any topics that you would like to see covered in these types of sessions that we have, feel free to drop us a note. Thanks again for your time.